Hello, I'm Doran Ellen Beldotan in Tzfat. This outreach to the rabbis is something that I've wanted to say for a very long time, but because of the potential risks in speaking so directly, I, forfended, is that a word? From bringing this out, but I think that things have gotten hairy enough in the world that the risk of not saying it outweighs the risk of coming out with this. The Gentiles know that the Jews are responsible for everything bad that occurs in the world. Problem is that the rabbis don't know. The Jews don't know. What the Gentiles don't know is the Jews are also responsible for everything good that's in the world. Most Jews don't know that either. We are so dissociated in our diaspora that we speak of God only in the third person and only experience God in the third person as some impossibly removed, absolutely abstracted other. God is that, but the Jews have lost the experience of God as first person and second person being very real. That's precisely what the diaspora is. And so the Gentiles know that the Jews are responsible for all the problems in the world, but the Jews don't know that. And we don't know that we're also responsible for all of the good in the world. We attribute that to God as some other. The reality is that nothing comes into creation except by way of Talmud Torah. When the Jews learn Torah, we bring existence into creation. God does not exist. God has no attributes whatsoever, including existence. Existence is one of God's creations. The existence of God is principally the Jews. We are able to confer that existence on that which we in turn create. But the first intention of existence is the Jewish people. When we learn Torah, we create all of the phenomena, be they abstract or concrete, that exist. The Jews no longer know that they're doing that. They don't really know what learning Torah is. They think it's for our edification, our moral edification. Yes, it is that, but it's far more than that. It actually brings reality into existence. So when we learn Torah, and of course when we learn Torah, we are supposed to speak what we learn. Those sound waves is what gives shape to everything in existence. The Ashkenazi pronunciation of Torah, of Hebrew in general, is so far afield that nobody who speaks any of the other Semitic languages can understand you. If an Israeli who speaks Hebrew speaks with someone who speaks Arabic or Aramaic, they can understand one another pretty well. They can get the gist of it. In fact, there are videos that show this being done on YouTube, and they're very interesting. But nobody understands the Ashkenazi pronunciation of Hebrew. It is so far afield that even Israelis, never mind people who speak Arabic and Aramaic, can understand you. What does that mean? It means that the creations that are coming from your pronunciations are far afield of what they're supposed to be formed as. This is especially true of when you're praying. Here in Israel, there are many Ashkenazi Jews who speak in normative Hebrew, but when they pray, they go back to the far afield Ashkenazi pronunciation. And so they too are contributing to the formation of deformed creations. It's not just the pronunciation, it is also the intention. If a Jew does not consciously know how to create phenomena from Torah, how to translate what's written on the text into actuality, that Jew is in diaspora, even if they own an apartment next to the Wailing Wall. They're still deep in the diaspora. Thank God, the things that Jews who are not in God consciousness create are temporary. We think that it is the nature of the world that everything changes and everything is temporary and everything comes into being and dissipates and breaks down and goes out of being. That's not at all the way things are supposed to be. Our creations are meant to be eternal. It's God's kindness to us when we create improperly, that which we create improperly is temporary and is finite, and it eventually passes away. This too shall pass is only true of that which is not in correct interpretation, and actually avo is another way of saying uba, which means an embryo. What Shlomo HaMelech is saying is very different than what you think. What he was actually saying is this wisdom too, which I am pronouncing, is embryonic reality. The way you're learning Torah, rabbis, it's all junk in, junk out. And that's why it doesn't remain. It is okay for a Jew to say, after so many generations in diaspora, I know that I do not have the original tradition in hand. I know that I've forgotten a lot. I know that I don't really know core Torah. But I have zealously protected the bits that I have received in the hope that when we return to Eretz Yisrael, when we return to the land of Israel, I and the generations that come after me will return to the way, that at least that there's something that I have in hand which will be a reminder of what actual Torah is, and will return to correct Torah. That is not only legitimate, it's very praiseworthy. And if the rabbis say, however, even though I know that I do not have original Torah in hand, I am not going to give this up for some new age, newfangled, who knows what. I'm not going to be like the Gentiles who gave up believing in their government only to take up the idea of believing that reptilians were running the world. I'm not going to throw away what I have for something that is even worse. That too is meritorious. That too is correct. But if one says, no, the way that I know Torah, the way that I've been taught, is absolutely correct. It's absolutely necessary to cut my fingernails in a particular order and jump over one fingernail and go to the other fingernail. And it's perfectly correct to think that there are evil spirits under the bed, so I don't put my Nagelwasser under the bed. And yeah, it's not only good, but it's actually a wonderful thing that we have retained the name of Babylonian gods for the months. That way we elevate them. If somebody comes into Eretz Yisrael with this kind of an attitude that this Babylonian magic, dark magic, which they think is Torah, is going to be what is going to be taught here in Israel, then that person is coming as a destroyer. That person intends to destroy the Torah ecology of Eretz Yisrael and poison it with Babylonian zanim, Babylonian, how do you say zanim in English, Abba? Species, thank you. And poison that which is holy with a foreign species. And that is not acceptable. And that is what the rabbis are doing here. They insist upon coming into Israel with the dirt of Babylon still on their shoes and in their shoes. And they teach that in the yeshivas to the children. And this is the reason why, since the creation of the State of Israel, we have actually seen more problems in the world, because those foreign elements are being amplified by the holiness of Israel. And those who are doing that intentionally, and there are a few that are doing that intentionally, there are Shabtaim who know this within the rabbinical establishment. The average run-of-the-mill rabbis who live on speaking gigs, no, you don't know this, but your Rabbis do know this. And that's not okay. It is up to the rabbis to ask themselves very, very difficult questions. Those difficult questions are, if I believe that my Rebbe is a tzaddik who has godly vision, how is it that there's pedophilia in our midst? Not as an isolated, once-in-a-generation phenomenon, but that it's prevalent. How is it that there were Rebbes who made pacts with the Bush family, who were known Nazi collaborators? How did they not know that, or did they? You're going to have to, I can give you the answers to these questions, but they will be so shocking to you that I prefer that you go through the process of finding this information out for yourself. Begin to look up Prescott Sheldon Bush, who was George Bush Sr.'s father. He was a senator. And his known Nazi collaboration. His holdings were frozen by 2 acts of Congress for collaborating with the Nazis. His son, George Walker Bush, who did not die a natural death, by the way, was recalcitrant. You cannot blame the son for the acts of the father unless they continue in that path, which he did, the George Bush. How is it that one of the Rabbis made a deal with him to teach everybody the rabbinical interpretation of the laws of Noach. Did he know who he was, or did he not know who he was? Either way, he couldn't be a perfect tzaddik, ein sof baguf. Did he know about the pedophilia that was occurring under his nose, or did he not? Either way, he was not a perfect tzaddik. And so Chabad is going to have to ask themselves some very, very difficult questions, because frankly, all of the Haredi chatzerot, I don't know, how do you say chatzerot? Not the camps, but the chatzerot have their problems. But I think that Chabad is most open to asking questions, and that way it'll filter into the other Haredim, and others will be emboldened to be able to deal with the truth. There is a rabbi by the name of Dov Berkowitz who knows a lot about what's going on in the rabbinical world. If you speak Hebrew, I will give a link to one of his lectures. I suggest that you tune in and listen to him. If you don't speak Hebrew well enough to understand what Rabbi Berkowitz is saying, shame on you. You have no right to have smicha if you don't know Hebrew on that level. But there is information in English about what's going on. And if somebody asks Hashem to show them the truth, they will be guided to the truth. Now, there is a lot of disinformation because there are powers that be that would prefer that we not know these things, so they taint it with a lot of weirdo jazz. We have to have ourselves in balance and examine the information with balance and with rationality and reason. I have no interest in being anybody's Rebbe. As people know, I have never earned a single agura for teaching Torah. I never would. Hashem has, thank God, created my life such that I don't need to sell learning Torah. I don't want to be a Rebbe. I don't need any speaking gigs. I am not looking to take your place. I don't want you coming to me and asking me for advice. The point at which you know that you need help is the point at which my job with you has been completed successfully, and at that point you go to Hashem and you ask for guidance to find Torah truth. I did not find Torah truth through any Rebbe. I learned from rabbis. I had to purify what they were saying in order to find it, but mostly I was hanging on to Hashem's tails with my fingernails. To find what I found. When I say tails, I mean coattails, in a very, very figurative way of speaking. What I'm trying to say is that I was holding on to that which cannot be held to desperately, and asking for the truth and asking for guidance, and I was given that guidance, and Torah truth was shown to me because Hashem saw that I was sincere. And that's the way that you must learn too. We can learn from one another, but we cannot learn in a way that is built on dependence, codependence. You rabbis have been taught to be codependent. You are dependent upon your Rebbes, you are dependent upon the rabbinical establishment. You want the people who listen to your lectures to be dependent on you. All of that is not kosher. That is not Torah. Our dependence has to be on Hashem. And if you'll turn to Hashem and say, it's very, very difficult to unlearn what we've learned wrong and learn it right. I had an advantage that you don't have. I didn't have to unlearn from infancy. I had to take 10 years out of my life to unlearn the Narishkeit that Chabad taught me. That, yes. But I didn't have to erase everything from infancy. But if you're willing to find the truth, and sometimes finding the truth in what you've already been taught, but you haven't been taught it completely, truthfully, is far more difficult than starting from ground zero. But if you go to Hashem and you ask, please show me real Torah, I promise you that you will be shown. And when you'll be shown, you will no longer learn Torah in such a way that you bring negativity in the world. You're not guilty. You don't know that you're doing this. You don't even know that you're creating the chaos that's in the world, that you're creating the conditions in the creation that allows chaos. But you are, and that has to be stopped. You will no longer be vulnerable to attacks. There will be no Gentile who will be able to walk into your synagogue with a gun and start shooting. These things should not be happening, and if they are happening, they are absolutely certain that you're not learning Torah correctly. You are supposed to be protected from all that. You're also supposed to be creating Gentiles that don't hate you, that are happy that they're alive, that are happy in their existence, that live abundantly and with maximal conditions for actualizing that which is good in them. That's what learning Torah for real does. You've wanted, I've heard in Chabad people saying that eventually the female face of Torah will be revealed. That's right. But what you think is that when the female face of Torah is revealed, which is the deepest level of Torah, that what she's going to do is figuratively tap you on the back and say congratulations for all of your interpretations. No. She's going to tell you that your interpretations have been incorrect because you have presumed to do her work. Everybody who's learning Sefer HaZohar, HaZohar is 217, that's the name Devorah. What business do you have with Devorah? You think you can understand Devorah? The one Jewish woman who was both a judge and a prophet, you think you're on a level, what business do you have with her? She invites you to have any kind of interaction with her? So yes, the female Torah, face of Torah is being revealed. But you're not going to get the congratulatory accolades you've been waiting for. You're going to get the critique that you so desperately need. Now go to Hashem and ask how to learn Torah. Thank you for listening.